Hello, this is Sanvi and today I'm reading From the Nature's Cradle by Ruskin Angry River Part 2. To where the trees grew on its banks. I will try to reach the trees, said the boy Krishan. We did not want to spend the night on the water, do we? And so he pulled for the trees. Soon they were in a forest, rowing between tall evergreens. They moved slowly now, paddling between the trees, and the moon lighted their way, making a crooked silver path over the water. We will tie the boat to one of these trees, said Krishan. Then we can rest. Tomorrow we will have to find a way out of the forest. He produced a length of rope from the bottom of the boat, tied one end to the boat's stern and threw the other end over a stout branch which hung only a few feet above the water. The boat came to a rest against the trunk of the tree. It was a quite tall, sturdy Indian mahogany, and it was very safe, for there was no rush of water here. Besides, the trees grew close together, making the earth firm and unyielding. But the animals had been flooded out of their holes, caves, and lairs, and were looking for shelter and dry ground. Sita and Krishan had barely finished tying the boat to the tree when they saw a huge python gliding over the water towards them. Sita was afraid that it might to get into the boat, but it went past them until it was lost in the shadows. Krishan had more mangoes in the basket. He and Sita sucked hungrily on them while they sat in the boat. Will be other animals, said Sita. Should we climb the tree? We are quite safe in the boat, said Shan. The animals are interested only in reaching dry land. They will not even hunt each other tonight. Tonight, the deer are safe from the panther and the tiger, so lie down and sleep. I will keep watch. Sita stretched herself on the boat and closed her eyes. The sound of the water lapping against the sides of the boat soon lulled her to sleep. She woke once when a strange bird called overhead. She raised herself on one elbow, but Krishan was awake, sitting in the prow, and he smiled reassuringly to her. It is all right again, said Krishan. You can go to sleep again. I don't think I will sleep now, said Sita. Then I will play my flute for you, said the boy, and the time will pass more quickly. From the bottom of the boat he took a flute and put it near to his lips. He began to play. The sweetest music that Sita had ever heard came pouring out of the little flute, and it seemed to fill the forest with its beautiful sound, and the dreams carried her away again into the land of dreams, until suddenly the sun shot out of the clouds. Sita sat up with a start, rocking the boat. There was hardly any clouds left. The trees were drenched with sunshine. The boy Krishan was fast asleep at the bottom of the boat. His flute lay on the palm of his half-open hand. The sun came slanting across his brown legs. Leaf had fallen on his upturned face. It lay on his cheek as though it had grown there. Sita did not move again, not want to wake the boy. It did not look as though the water had gone down, but it hadn't risen, and that meant the flood had spent itself. Warmth of the sun woke him at last. He yawned, stretched his limbs, and sat up beside Sita. I am hungry, he said with a smile. So am I, said Sita. The last are the mangoes, she said, and emptied the basket of its last 2 mangoes. After they had finished the fruit, they sucked the big seeds until these were quite dry. We had better moved on, said Krishan. He rowed the boat through the trees, and then for about an hour they were passing through the flooded forest under the dripping branches of rain-washed trees. Sometimes used the oars to push away vines and creepers. Sometimes bushes hampered them. They were out of the forest before noon. The water was not very deep, and they were gliding over flooded fields. In the distance, they saw a village. The people of the village were generous and gave stranded children food and shelter. Sita was anxious to find her grandparents, and an old farmer who had a business in Shahganj offered to take her there. Was hoping that Krishan would accompany her, but he said he would wait in the village where others would be arriving, his own people among them. You will be all right now, said Krishan. Your grandfather will be anxious for you, so it is best that you go to him as soon as you can. And 1 or 3 days the water will go down, and you will be able to return to the island. Perhaps the island has gone forever, said Sita. She climbed the bullock's cart, his full farmer's bullock cart. Krishan handed her his flute. Please keep it for me. Keep it for me, said. I will come for it one day. And when he saw her hesitate, he added, his eyes twinkling, it is a good flute. It was lower going in the bullock cart. The road was over. The wheels got stuck in the mud, and the farmer and his grown son and Sita had to keep getting down to heave and push in order to free the big wooden wheels. So there were day and night in the bullock cart before they reached Sagand. By the time Sita was walking the narrow bazaar of the busy market, the town was hardly recognizable. So grandfather did not recognize her. He was walking stiffly down the road and would have walked right past the dusty, disheveled girl if she had not straight to his thin, shaky legs and clasped him the waist. Sita, he cried, and he recovered his wind and balance. How are you here? How did you get off the island? I was very worried. Bad these last 2 days. His grandmother on right, but even as she spoke, she knew that grandmother was no longer with them. She wanted to cry, not for grandmother who could suffer no more, but father who looked so helpless. She did not want him to be unhappy. She forced her tears, took his gnarled and trembling hand, and led him down the street. He returned at the island after a few days. Fever was no longer in spirit. There was more rain, but the worst was over. Grandfather still had two of the goats. It had not been necessary to sell more than one. He could hardly believe his eyes when he saw the tree had escaped from the island. He marveled at Sita's escape. It was the tree that saved you, he said. And the boy, said Sita. Yes, and the boy. Wondered if he would ever see him again. But she did not think too much because there was so much to do. For 3 nights they slept under a crude shelter made out of jute bags. During the day she helped father rebuild the mud hut. Once again they used the big rock as support. The chunk which Sita had packed so carefully had not been swept off the island, but the water had got in, and the food and the clothing been spoiled. But for the hookah had been saved, and in the evenings he spoke with a little of his contentment. Tell Sita about the floods, that storms which he had experienced as a boy. Sita planted a mango seed in the same spot where the people so it would be many years before it grew into a big tree. But Sita liked to imagine sitting on its branches one day, picking go straight from the tree. One day it was the most hard work had been done. The new hut was almost ready. Sita took the flute which had been given by her by the boy and walked down to the river's edge and tried to play it. But all she could produce were her few broken notes. The rains came to an end, the flood waters had receded, the village, just people were beginning to till the land again and sow crops for the winter months. The water in the river was no longer muddy, and one evening, grandfather brought home a massive fish, and Sita made it into a delicious curry. He sat beside the hut, smoking his hookah. Sita was at the far end of the island, spreading rocks on the shore, clothes on the rocks to dry. One of the goats had followed her. It was the friendlier of the two, and often followed Sita about the island. Sat down on a smooth rock, and as she did so, she noticed a small bright object in the sand near her feet. Stooped and picked it up. It was a small wooden toy, a colored peacock that must have been swept ashore on the island. Some of the green paint had rubbed off, but for Sita it was a great find. Perhaps it would speak to her as Mumta had spoken to her. As she held the toy peacock in the palm of her, she thought that she heard the flute music again, but she did not look up. She heard it before, but she was sure that it was all in her mind. But this time, this music sounded near. It was a footfall on the sand, and looking up, she saw the boy Krishan over there. I thought you would never come, said Sita. I had to wait until the rains were over. Now that I am free, I will come more often. Did you keep my flute? Yes, but I cannot play it properly. Sometimes it plays by itself, I think, but it will not play for me. I will teach you how to play it, said Kishan. She sat so in her and cooled their feet and the water, which was clear now, reflecting the blue of the sky. Sometimes the river is angry and sometimes it is kind, said Sita. We are a part of the river, said the boy. We cannot live without it. And that is the end of the angry river from the nature's cradle. From the cradle of nature of Ruskin Bonds. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. And I will see you soon with another story. Bye for now.